this, the last video covering the $42 million Central States US coin signature auction, let's take a quick look at some of the more unusual pieces that were on offer. And there can be no better way to kick off this list than with the copper example of the Libertas Americana medal. This is one of the original dies struck at the Paris Mint, famously designed and commissioned by Benjamin Franklin to celebrate the birth of the United States as a nation, as well as the end of the Revolutionary War. This example was graded by NGC as AU 53 brown and raised a total of $16,200 at auction on its turn. There was a period of time from roughly 1776 to 1792 where America had no official coinage system. Colonial powers no longer held sway, but the US Mint had not been created either. So the states and private industry filled the void to a certain degree. A brilliant example of this would be the Massachusetts cents, created by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts from 1786 to 1789. This is an example of the famed transposed arrows variety, where the arrows were clutched in the right talon of the eagle, as opposed to the opposite being true for every other known variety of this particular coin. Graded by NGC as XF40, the coin sold at auction for $84,000. Another rare coin type that falls into the post-colonial but pre-federal coinage era would be the Immunis Columbia coins, considered a private or unofficial issue as they were not necessarily created with any official mandate. Here we see a rare 1786 Eagle reverse variety. Now, this one was graded by NGC as AU 50 brown, and this landmark rarity within the series was sold at auction for $90,000. And now for a look at an exceedingly rare New York Excelsior copper, this of the seldomly seen Eagle on Globe reverse design. They were initially thought to be linked to Ephraim Brasher, but more recent research puts forth a rather compelling argument that they might indeed have been created for Thomas Machen at Samuel Atlee's New York City Brewery Mint. Either way, with fewer than a dozen examples known, and with this particular example graded as NGC MS62 brown, the final price at auction was a very well-deserved $132,000. The next coin is again technically a pattern, although it was not struck at the US Mint, nor under any official authority from the US government. It was created by an enterprising young engraver by the name of Jacob Perkins, who we'll learn more about in just a few moments, before the US Mint even opened its doors fully in 1792. Opinion is somewhat divided as to whether this half-dollar pattern was created as a petition to create coins on a contract basis for the US government, or in fact as an audition of sorts to vie for the position of chief engraver at the soon-to-be established US Mint in Philadelphia. Today, only 5 examples of this coin is known in silver, and this particular example is graded as NGC XF40 to sell at auction for $168,000. We'll take a look at a Washington Peace Medal in a little bit, but before that is an example of a colonial era George II Indian Peace Medal. This item created after the Treaty of Easton, dated as 1757. It was created on behalf of the Philadelphia Society of Friends and supposedly presented to several delegates of the Iroquois, Delaware, Lenape, and the Shawnee tribes that attended the treaty negotiations. Graded as MS62 by NGC, it was struck over a Spanish 8 reales coin and regarded as one of the first medals struck in America itself, but sold here at auction for $168,000. By the mid-1800s, the issuance of peace medals had become a well-established one, and private industry was looking to cash in on the goodwill that these conveyed. After the government refused it permission to issue medals on its behalf, the American Fur Company started striking private peace medals, being extremely careful and very insistent to call them ornaments and not medals. The practice was soon exposed for what it was, and these so-called ornaments were thinly disguised copies of the US presidential peace medals of the day. These particular John Jacob Astor Fur Company medals are exceedingly rare today, with only 7 coins known, 5 of which are in fact in museums, as far as I can tell. This example, graded by NGC as AU55, sold at auction for $144,000. After the death of George Washington in late 1799, the nation was plunged into mourning, the loss of a true hero of the Revolutionary War, and the fledgling nation's first president was felt deeply by many. A number of funeral processions were held to honor this fallen hero, and several privately struck medals were created to commemorate these events. Now, this is one such, created in gold by Newburyport, Massachusetts engraver Jacob Perkins. This is a very rare example of the skulls and crossbones on reverse type. Both Washington and Perkins were prominent Freemasons, and this variety was struck specifically for the procession conducted by the Grand Lodge of Massachusetts on February the 11th, 1800. Only 2 of these funerary medals are known to exist in gold, with this example graded by NGC with a details grade of AU. It sold at auction for $210. Another slightly more common variety of this mourner's medal or funerary medal is the GW on urn type. On this particular piece, there is a funeral urn on the reverse with the letters GW inscribed thereupon. They were made for and sold to attendees of the Boston funeral procession on Thursday, January 9th, 1800, where they were worn around the necks of mourners. Now, examples are known in both white metal, copper, silver, as well as gold, with this example graded by NGC as XF40 and sold at auction for $50,400. And then a third example I just have to mention very quickly is an oval uniface specimen. Now, this coin also in gold and created again by Perkins. Now, only around a dozen or so of these oval pieces were created, with this example set in a gold bezel with 19 small pearls adorning it. Exactly when the medal was set like this is unfortunately unknown. However, it does appear to be contemporary to the medal itself. This particular piece was sold for $57,600 at auction. Indian peace medals are a curious holdover from the colonial days, where silver medals were gifted to Native American chiefs, usually as a token of friendship or at the conclusion of a treaty as a nod of diplomatic understanding, a practice likely adopted from a similar tradition in the European courts. The George Washington presidential peace medals were all hand engraved, and as such, all genuine examples are unique and number no greater than 4 to 5 dozen total examples known, issued in 1789, 1792, 93, as well as 1795. The vast majority of which are housed in museum collections today. In his research, George Field lists 17 known 1793 peace medals, all engraved by hand. The current example is noted as one of the more attractive examples known, authenticated as genuine by NGC. The oval peace medal sold at auction for $630,000. Subscribe to WNN and activate notifications with the bell icon so you'll know when new videos are released. For the World Numismatic News, I am Numisman saying thank you for watching, stay safe, keep collecting, and have a fantastic day.